if I could have your attention, thanks very much for coming. I guess the size of the room is an indicator of the fact that this issue is obviously very much in the news. I'd like to introduce myself first. I'm Stephen Haggard. I direct the Korea Pacific program here at the School of Global Policy and Strategy, and I teach courses on Korean security and international relations in the Asia Pacific. This is part of a lecture series that Eric Gartzka has brought over to GPS from his Center for Peace and Security Studies over in Political Science. And what we're trying to do in this series is bring in people from the intelligence community who have worked at great detail on these issues of nonproliferation and get them to explain how they work, what they found, and what we know. And what we're going to be talking about today is a crucial period in North Korea's nuclear development. Kim Il-sung showed an interest in developing nuclear power as early as the 50s, but particularly in the late 80s and into what we call the first nuclear crisis, which broke in 1992 and was finally resolved in 1994, we see a real acceleration of interest in acquiring a nuclear weapons capability. And that's running in parallel with ballistic missile technology development that also begins to ratchet up in the 1980s. And as our guest today will say, this process has just simply continued into the current Kim Jong-un period. So let me just thank a few people who have made this possible. First of all, I want to thank the Nonproliferation Policy Education Center. They provide very generous funding for Tory to come out. And then some groups on campus that have helped us distribute the word on this and gotten some of you out here. UC San Diego's International Institute and the Center for Transnational Korean Studies, which I also work on, which does campus-related work on Korea. Let me introduce Tory Brochure. I've had the pleasure of talking to him here this afternoon for some time and talk to him about his career. I can talk about formal titles, but the main thing you need to know about Tory is he spent 35 years at the CIA, basically working on issues of nonproliferation. And he's not a regional person, he's a technical person. So this is about how we discern the capabilities that the North Koreans have developed over time. He's worked in analytic units that were concerned with nuclear test monitoring, with nuclear proliferation generally, with biological and chemical weapons. But he rose to position as chief of analysis for the Nonproliferation Center at the CIA, which is preoccupied primarily with these issues of intelligence about adversaries and their nuclear capabilities. So Tory, I think what we'll do is we'll let you talk for 30 or 40 minutes, and then I might ask the first question. But the rest of the time, we'll give it to the audience so they can...
Great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Haggard. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Haggard, for that introduction. Can everybody hear me all right? Can you hear me? Okay.
Let me just adjust here. Just raise it up a little bit. We've got him mic'd
I feel
in
like
two or three ways. There you go. I think that would be
okay. Is that better? Yeah. If I fade out or anything, please let me know. It's great to have the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me. North Korea is very much in the news these days, but I'm not going to talk about the current program, what's going on today in North Korea. This is, by my count, the third North Korean nuclear crisis. As Professor Haggard mentioned, you go back to when we first became concerned about North Korea's nuclear program in the 1980s, so I'm going to start there. And I'm going to move through the first North Korean nuclear crisis, which was from 1992 to 1994, which culminated in the so-called agreed framework when the North Koreans agreed to freeze their plutonium production infrastructure, that is the reactor and reprocessing facility that they had at Yongbyon, that they still have at Yongbyon. And then I'll go into the second North Korean nuclear crisis in 2003, 2002, when, as a result of the U.S. confronting North Korea about evidence concerning their efforts in the uranium enrichment area, the agreed framework came to an end. So that was 2002, 2003, almost exactly 15 years ago. And I think you can say that the circumstances that were in place in 2003 at the end of the agreed framework, all the factors were there at that time that have led to the situation that we face today in North Korea. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about the intelligence community's role in assessing and supporting policymakers' efforts to deal with North Korea's nuclear program over the years, and a little bit about what we did well, perhaps what we could have done a little bit better. And it's a lot of ground to cover, but as Professor Haggard said, I'll try to do that in 30 to 40 minutes and leave time for your questions.